$200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES. You're listening to the SNES broadcast with your hosts, Soul Blazer and George.
Hello, folks. Welcome to the Super NES podcast, episode number 121 this time. As always, this is Greg, joined by George.
This game gave me anxiety.
Yeah, me too, but but I can understand why it's so popular. Well, I mean, a cult favorite at least. It's probably cult. I did not mean to do that, but it works, right?
Did you mean cult classic?
Yeah, cult following, cult classic. What do you want to say? It works.
A cult release, a cult game. There you go.
Well, I don't know if there's a cult in this game per se, but I mean,
it's almost cult-like.
Yeah, well, we'll get into it, but
Yeah.
So we're looking at another Japanese-only game for this time around. A series actually, for that matter, I've always been curious about, but never have actually played directly. And we're looking at Clock Tower.
A Japanese-only series that I didn't pick this
Yes.
time.
Yep.
Interesting.
Mostly Japanese-only series. A couple of these games have come out here in the West, but
Right, but this game did not.
No, and for obvious reasons.
It's translated. It's fan translated though. So.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
So, not even the later updated release got released here in the West. So,
Yeah.
definitely. So definitely an underrated game in some ways. Yeah, Clock Tower is a very interesting history, which I really didn't know about. I started to research on it. This is considered to be a survival horror point-and-click adventure game, which I'm credited with being one of the first games to kick off the whole survival horror series franchise. Not really the first. There were a couple other games that came up before this. Obviously, you had the very like influential Alone in the Dark series on PlayStation. PlayStation. Yeah, I'd be okay. Eventually PlayStation, but PC is like where it started at.
There was that Japanese-only. I think it was based off of a movie. Something. What was it called? Sweet Home. That was
yes.
like an art. That was like a survival horror RPG.
Yep. Yeah,
Which
Capcom
is
made that
really
game.
interesting, actually. That was on the Famicom.
Yep, a Capcom game. Very good. I played it. So.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yep. So, yeah, a lot of people consider it be like Resident Evil, a lot of folks call like Resident Evil Resident Evil 0.5. Because some ideas that Capcom used later on in the series. No, yeah, the fan translation of that game's been out for like a long time now. It's a very good game.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So Clock Tower is also considered to be like very, very important as far as getting the whole franchise started. Clock Tower came out in Japan September 14, 1995. The game was developed by a company called Human Entertainment, which you may not know the name, but you recognize some of the games that they made because they made a lot of games over their history.
That name sounds like something like aliens banded together and came down to Earth and they made video games. It's Human Entertainment. Yeah, we're totally not aliens.
Well, the Japanese like to have like very like strange names for their companies sometimes. So, but yeah, Human was around from 1983 to 2000. And besides the Clock Tower series, they're also best known for getting the Fire Pro Wrestling series started.
Oh yeah.
But so they made games for the Game Boy, NES, N64, PC Engine, PC, PlayStation, Saturn, Sega CD, Genesis, Super NES, TurboGrafx, and Wonder Swan, like over the years. They also published games that came on the Dreamcast, like in the Saturn. So, the Dreamcast and other systems. But yeah, so a lot of wrestling games in their history. They also developed a Super Soccer for the Game Boy. Adventures Go Against Islands for the NES, which is actually a very good game. It's very like underrated. So they also were the ones who actually created they also were the ones who actually created the very infamous Athletic World game that Bandai the Bandai published. Like, you know that game, George, right?
No, I don't.
That's the game that came with the Power Pad. Before Nintendo bought it and released it.
Oh, right.
So Athletic World is one of the like rarest games in existence. Just because of that.
I didn't think that was the name of it though.
Well, the game got re-released by Nintendo with a different like a different name.
Right, but wasn't the name
the
Stadium Events or something?
that was the renamed NES.
That was the rename.
The rename, yeah.
Okay.
Athletic World. See, Bandai first released the Power Pad and the game on their own. Then later,
Right.
later on, Nintendo bought up the rights and rebranded it. Well, most Athletic Worlds were supposed to be recalled. Most of them apparently were, but the game's like very, very rare today because of it. So, but yeah, Human Entertainment was the one that actually like developed that game. They also developed a Kabuki Quantum Fighter, Monster Party, Venus Wars. Those are all like good NES games. The first two Fire Pro Wrestling games. Vanguard Bandits for the PlayStation, which was a game that Working Designs later like brought over here. Like very, very good game.
I'm actually playing through that game.
Oh yeah, it's a great game.
Yeah.
They also developed like the NES, the F1 pole position series, which is which is considered to be a very good racing series. Also a bunch of soccer games, and they also released SOS, which is also like a very interesting point and click adventure style game of the console. We'll have to cover that game at some point also because SOS is a very like interesting game also in its own right. So, but yeah, so very good history. A lot of good games the company came out with over the years. They unfortunately, as I said, unfortunately like went bankrupt in 2000, and their people went out to work for other companies to keep some of the other series, series such as the Fire Pro Wrestling series going.
Right.
So, but yeah, so Clock Tower being a late Super NES game, well, I'm just gonna call it Super NES because it's easier to call it that way. It actually, even though the game they only came out like in the Famicom. Very, very interesting game.
I think you mean the Super Famicom.
Yeah, Super Famicom.
Yep.
It was developed by a very like small team for Human Entertainment with a small budget because they really didn't, have like high hopes for it. There's like the director of the game, Hifumi Kono, just pretty much wanted to do his pet project because it's very because he was very much inspired by the Italian film director Dario Argento's works, especially like his horror films. So he wanted to try to make like a game version of that, and the company allowed him to do so. But it was very like small budget and small team, and it shows in some places in this game, I thought, but not as bad as it could be. I think at the most part, this game does not look like or play like it was like kind of like a very like like skin and bones effort as far as the money manpower went. But this was the first game of a series. We'll talk about that series here like briefly, like real quick, because the game did very well in Japan, obviously. It was going to be kind of a it was going to be an inspiration for Resident Evil, which came out the following year. The original Clock Tower did get revised later on, as Clock Tower: The First Sphere, which came out on the PlayStation, Wonder Swan, and Windows, but again, unfortunately, Japan only. Although, the fan translations of that version of the game do also exist. The main differences of that version of the game is they updated the graphics to take advantage of the more higher resolution of those systems, and they also updated some of the gameplay mechanics to make it more user friendly. More keeping with the times as far as people would expect like in their game. The second game in the series, Clock Tower 2, did come out here in the West, in the West, where it's known simply as Clock Tower, to avoid any confusion. Kind of a similar idea. It has the same, it has different characters, different location, but it still has the same antagonist, Scissor Man, like in that game as well, also. It's just like a little bit to do with the original game. The third game in the series, however, was not directed by Kono. It's going to be kind of a spin-off in Japan because it can, for that reason, it doesn't have a number release. It's called Clock Tower 2: The Struggle Within. Though Japan, the game was known as Clock Tower Ghost Head, which is a strange name, I admit.
I don't know which title was worse, to be honest, but I think Ghost Head is more funny.
Well, the game deals with a 17-year-old girl who suffers from multiple personality disorder. So I think that both Struggle Within and Ghost Head are trying to make a reference to that.
Yeah.
So, but you can argue how well it worked. But yeah, and then like the last game in the series, Clock Tower 3, because Human Entertainment was out of business at that point. The game was co-developed by both Capcom and Sunsoft and released on the PS2. And Clock Tower and Clock Tower 3 were the ones that got released here in the West. No, actually, I'm sorry. Clock Tower 2 Struggle Within also got a Western release.
It did, yes.
Yep. So it was really only the first game that didn't come out here in the West, which is curious. But you would think somebody would have translated it and released it at some point in its history, but nope, never happened. But
yeah, I would have thought maybe with that PlayStation release they would have released it. I definitely did not. I definitely don't see. I didn't see how they would release that in North America on the original SNES. I think that hit too. Yeah, I think that hit too many things for it to.
But yeah, especially the mid-90s.
It probably hit almost all the check marks that Nintendo of America was like, you can't have this, or this. So.
Right. So the series is pretty much defunct at this point because the last game in the series came in 2002. The same team of Kono, the director, for example, has released other games which are considered to be inspired by or pseudo sequels, or spiritual successors, however you want to call it. Haunting Ground 2005 was the first game of those, which came out with the PS2. Very similar to Clock Tower 3. There was also a game that came out a couple years ago that was a few years ago that was that was crowdfunded by Kickstarter, called Nightcry, which came out for Windows in 2016.
I haven't even heard of that.
I didn't either. So there was even supposed to be there was talk for several years about a film coming out based upon the Clock Tower games, but never actually developed. The Kickstarter budget got $300,000 for the project. So the original game is, as George mentioned, is very controversial. It has a lot of disturbing elements in it. To be frank. The premise of the game is just basically how you control a girl called Jennifer, who's invited by somebody to go live in her house with a bunch of other kids, and almost as soon as you get there, bad things start happening. And the game.
Well, that almost makes it sound like it's a horror game, Greg.
Well, it does have a lot of horror elements to it, but
well, maybe because it is a horror game.
Yeah, but it's not pure horror. I mean, I'm not sure really how. I mean,
I don't even know what that means, Greg. What do you mean it's not pure horror?
I mean something I consider a more modern game The Evil Within to be a horror game, for example. But
I don't know. This is definitely a horror game, Greg.
Well,
it most certainly is. There's things that are trying to kill you.
Yeah.
And you're defenseless, so it's even worse.
Right.
Yeah.
The actual amount of blood and guts or gore they show in this game is limited because of the resolution of the system, obviously. So it's not quite as serious.
There's still some stuff in there that's just like
there is, yeah.
Oof.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's always interesting to see how a point and click game kind of like handles on a console, because it's like you're using the pad obviously to move things around, and the cursor's a bit slow. I thought, but but it's not. It's not horrible. It's not to the point of being unplayable. It's just like,
I think it's all right. I think the problem is the lock on. Like
Oh,
trying to get
yes.
the cursor to lock on is the worst.
especially a panic situation.
I don't even want to think about that. That gives me anxiety.
Right.
That
So
just
yeah.
gives me a feeling of just utter dread.
So I have a real love-hate relationship with like this game. It's just like I usually, as a rule, do not do very well with horror games. I don't like horror movies in general. It's like like blood and guts, that kind of stuff. Doesn't really do anything for me. Now suspenseful movies I enjoy. Dramas, or things like, or actual what's a good example to use? The Scream series, for example. The Scream movies I really like, because those were like suspenseful without really being like horror, like horror filled. So I'm fine with those. Just like pure horror movies, like Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, that kind of stuff. I just can't stand. And it comes the same way for games, because it's for example, like our mutual friend Cole, who'd the Murphy Network, who does a bunch of podcasts. He loves horror games. He does a whole bunch of streaming about it and whatnot. And I enjoy watching him stream the games, but I just can't play them myself because of the whole jump scare, or the horror aspect of the games. It's like, and there are some games I played over the years that I really like. Despite that, my favorite example to go to always is System Shock series, because it's like,
Oh God.
those definitely have some jump scares. Those definitely have to have some jump scares and like some horror elements. But it's like I can play those. I just need to cut. I just need to take breaks every now and then. Regularly, as a matter of fact, to go collect myself. Because another modern game I really would like to play is Alien Isolation, which is a very good game, because I love the Alien series. But it's like I just can't play that game because they give me a heart attack.
I would never be able to play anything like that.
Right. Yeah. So. But System Shock I can handle, because System Shock is not. I mean, there are jump scares in the game, but they're not really that bad. System Shock is just it's more like a whole. You're constantly on edge in the game. You're constantly suspenseful. You're constantly your adrenaline's always pumping. You're always on edge. Okay, who's coming at me now? What kind of baddies are coming at me? So, and this game, despite its age being older, this game also does a very great job doing that. You're always on edge. You're always suspenseful. You're always afraid. Afraid of Scissor Man showing up to your trip something and killing you, or trying to kill you at least.
Yeah, because he pops up out of nowhere. He'll come.
Yeah.
You'll run away from him, and then it'll be like 5 to 10 minutes, and it's like, oh, that's weird. I haven't seen him in a while. And then you go into a room, and then you do something, and you see this dresser, and the drawer opens slowly, and he jumps out. And it's like, what the heck are you doing in there? What? He comes out of nowhere. He's out of the most random places, and it's like there's a slight comedic effect to it, but also oh my God, it's so unexpected where he's gonna be next.
Yeah, so you really got to be on edge for that. So, but yeah, considering the age of this game and the platform was on, I thought they did an excellent job of doing that, because that was very impressive.
Oh yeah, this game is definitely impressive for the time and the platform.
Yeah, the graphics in this game are very, very good. I mean, this is the late Super NES games. You kind of expect decent graphics, but there are some scenes in this game which are pseudo realistic, pseudo photos.
Kind of.
Yeah, very, very impressive. So, but the 2D graphics of the house are well done. They're colorful. They're colorful. They're detailed. They really do a good job of helping. The graphics really do a good job of helping set the scene, like and draw you in.
Yeah. The environment's not the environment. Well, I mean, when I say environment,
no, that works.
it's
yeah,
like
right.
yeah, it's it's the game's mostly the house and whatnot, but it does a really good job of feeling like this mansion, and you don't know this house, so you get lost so easily.
Maps
it's really good at doing that, and that definitely adds to the whole like horror thing, because it's like you're trying to make sure that the Scissorman's not gonna kill you or anything, on top of him popping up out of nowhere, but also you're running around this area, you have no idea what door leads to what, and what room is which, and so on and so forth. And then when you get towards the end of the game, it's just like, oh wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. So here's another like a bit of trivia for it. To trivia for you as far as the game design goes, like the main character, which I didn't mention earlier. I did mention how the director was inspired by the works of like the Italian director like Dario. I think his name is pronounced like Dario like Argento. Most notably, one movie in particular was cited as influence, like a movie called Phenomena, I think is how it's pronounced. From 1985.
No idea.
He directed, molded and inspired Jennifer in this game off of Jennifer Connelly, the actress who was one of the main people like in the movie. So kind of like definitely shows his like his love for the movie and the people that for the people that were in it. So the atmosphere in this game is definitely something that everybody always comments on as being a plus. The graphics, the whole, how the mansion's designed, what you find in the rooms. It also, it all like wonderfully comes together. To make a like vivid picture. Definitely helps to add your fear factor as you like go through the mansion. Yeah, making a map or using a map is how they recommend it. Because you need to backtrack some of this game also as you go through it. So
yeah, there's a lot of dead ends too.
Yep. Which
and
is frustrating.
I don't mean the game endings.
Right. Oh yeah. Yep. There's actually 8 endings in this game, which is like wow, like 8 endings, pretty good.
And my favorite thing is this game does one of those things where you have to make the planets align to get the best ending.
Oh,
and how
yeah.
And I bet you like not even 1% of the people who played this game even got the best ending out of just like, just whatever.
Nope, probably not. Like it's very hard. So.
No, yeah, it feels like they made it so you need to have a guide to get the best ending, which is insane.
I'm sending you a picture on Discord right now, George. I apologize, like listeners like up there, but nope, I'm sorry. That was not the picture.
Yeah.
Let me try this again. But
no, I got it.
But yeah,
I got the picture.
Right. This is illustrate what I was talking about earlier, like how the main character was designed off the actress.
Yep. Yeah, I've seen this before.
So, I mean, pretty close likeness.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But anyway. So, and the sound music also does a great job helping to also having to paint the whole picture as far as the atmosphere goes.
Especially with the scissor noises.
Oh, yes.
And when we say scissor, if you don't know this game, it's not like a handheld scissor. It's a giant 2-handed scissor. Like, yeah, let that sink in for a second. Like what? Like, yeah, that's the signature weapon of Scissor Man.
He kind of reminds me.
Two giant 2-handed scissor, a pair of scissors. It's just what?
Think about like think about like Edward Scissors. Think about like Edward Scissorhands, just like a more like nasty version of them.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's a connection you can make.
Which this game came up for the movie, so but
You know,
Yes.
they say don't run with scissors, but
He does a pretty good job of it.
well, if you look at the one on the PlayStation, the first one that was released on the PlayStation, Clock Tower 2,
Right.
he totally does not move like he does in this game.
Oh, okay.
I wonder if he dropped the scissors and fell on them because he's like
Right.
he's got like a limp.
Right. So in many ways, Clock Tower is a pretty typical point-and-click adventure game. We already mentioned the cursor that you use to direct the character that can also give her, commands. There's no menu on screen. You simply have to use the buttons to interact with things and that kind of stuff. You either can walk or run. Obviously, there are times you're going to need to run, but running will reduce your stamina, so you need to do that carefully.
I find it really interesting that if you want to walk, you use the like confirm button or whatever.
Yeah,
for, like, if you're pointing and clicking, and if
right.
you want to run, you use the shoulder buttons, and that's really interesting.
I think they wanted to try to make it easy to be able to walk versus run because they realized you're gonna be like running a lot in this game. So
There are people that would argue that you shouldn't run at all in the game.
well, yeah, because it is.
And I've
limited,
seen people
so.
play without running, and
Really?
they've encountered Scissor Man, and they've easily gotten away because he's slow.
He is slow. Yes.
You can walk away from him, and then if you know what you're doing, you could probably
Right. Exactly.
take care of him quick enough if you just walk.
Yeah,
because if
like,
you run, what happens is, like you said, you use up your stamina. And if he catches you when you're being attacked or whatever, or if you need to do an action, the less stamina you have, the harder it is to do. So I think that's why a lot of people don't run in their gameplays of
Sure. Right.
Clock Tower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and one thing I don't like, to recover stamina, you actually have to like sit. You either in a
Yeah, you
chair
have
or,
to stay
or-
still.
or on the floor. So that makes it a bit harder. Interesting. An interesting thing about this game, which I really liked. When you encounter Scissor Man in the same room, the game goes into panic mode. Where basically, depending upon, you may be forced. Well, how can I put this? There's certain things that may happen to Jennifer depending upon her health status and stamina level when you're in panic mode. Which I don't love, but I do understand why it's in here. It does kind of make the game like more realistic, I think. Like, for example, Jennifer may trip, like she may slow down. She may be. Sometimes I'd swear that the game would not recognize command press. Sometimes in panic mode. I'm not sure if you had the same experience, George. But
Not really.
so I'm not sure if that was part of the game or what. But yeah. So you can't use. So obviously you have no weapons to use against him. You can, however, find hiding spots where you can use to kind of hide yourself away from him. You can also use traps. There are traps you can set up every now and then to like slow him down and hurt him or whatnot. So if you're caught, you can't struggle with Scissor Man, but rapidly pushing a button to try to escape, which is nice.
Right, and the lower you're, like I said before, the less stamina you have, the harder it is to fight him off.
Yep. There are the game does give you kindness, like unlimited continues. Because if you die, they can go back to the menu screen and you can like start over again. So,
well, it's not even starting over, right? You continue from like some sort of checkpoint or something.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what I mean. So
very forgiving for a game of this era.
Oh yes, very much. So like I really appreciate that. Because if there wasn't, I would have gotten frustrated with this a long time ago. But
oh man,
as it is, this game is hard. But it gets easier once you figure out the map of the mansion. The mansion once you know what to do. There are speedruns of this game online, which are very impressive.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, the game's definitely challenging at first. And like I said, the game does a great job of the atmosphere, keeping you tense. It'll keep you tense and nervous the whole time, which is a good thing or a bad thing depending on how you look at it. So, and yeah, Scissor Man is also a boy. He's like I don't remember the game says it directly, but it is explained in some of the materials related to the game. He's not that old. He's just simply he's just kind of like a murderous little boy with deformed features, who has, as George mentioned, has scissors in his hands, like hands. So, and the ending you get in the game depends upon the choices you make. Like you put in the mansion. There's certain things you have to find to activate triggers. Can you do those triggers? Triggers set up, it puts into place like certain endings. You can, some of those, some of those triggers include like finding somebody, finding letters, collecting items, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, and George mentioned, it's not easy. You really have to know exactly what to do and when to do it to be able to unlock the best ending of the game.
Yeah.
But so the game does kind of give kind of a pseudo 3D feel to it. I think like some of the environments. Some of the rooms definitely felt kind of like more bigger, kind of sense of scale, of depth to them. Because of how the graphics were designed. Very nice touch. So, they wanted to have the game support the Super NES mouse originally. That was also something I found out doing research. But because the game was made in such a shoestring budget and staff, they weren't able to like put that in. So the game sold fairly well. They did. There were no final release figures available for it, but the company estimates estimates it all together between its original Super Famicom version and also the remakes that came out later on. The game sold about 100,000 copies.
Wow.
So, the WonderSwan version of the game, however, was ported down to fit that version of the system, and it got panned because of it. It plays monochrome, for example, but can play slower.
I just wonder why they thought it was a good idea to port it to the WonderSwan.
Probably because they wanted to, they were bribed by the company. We need good games in the system, please, please, please. But
the WonderSwan was a pretty good thing, but like
it was, yes, but yeah. So the Windows PlayStation versions versions obviously played much better. As I mentioned before, small improvements, but also include like full motion video scenes, as well as like the versions.
Yep.
And the game. So the Super Famicom version of the game did come out in Japan. Did come out in Japan also like on the Wii and the Wii U Virtual Console.
That's not surprising.
Yep, and the PlayStation version also got released on the PlayStation Network. But again, unfortunately, all the releases, were Japan only. The soundtrack was also made available, George, like as a collection. In 2015, they released Clock Tower 20th Anniversary Sound Collection, which includes music from the original game, Clock Tower 2, and Clock Tower Ghost Head.
Oh, okay.
So, the Super Famicom version of the game scored pretty well in Japan. Like Famitsu, one of the biggest game magazines in Japan at the time, for example, gave it like a...
At the time, isn't it still the biggest game magazine?
Is it still around? Let me look here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
Because magazines are good. Yeah, because magazines are pretty much like, like a dying breed at this point. But, let me see here. Famitsu,
yeah, it's still going on.
Yes, it is. Okay.
It's gone through 4 different publishers.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. 1986. Yeah. Still going strong.
Yeah, it started in 1986.
Wow. Okay. I stand corrected. But yeah. Anyway, so the game reviewed pretty well. The PlayStation Windows versions did not review like quite as well, but they still kind of did like decently. So, the later games of the series, however, got very like mixed reviews. Clock Tower definitely to be just like one of the one of the best games in the series. Most reviewers have been like pretty uniform about it. They praise the graphics, the story, the atmosphere of the game, but they also cited on the downside that the difficulty of navigating the mansion and the excessive item hunting along the excessive item hunting kind of helped to fail to make it a very immersive adventure experience. The puzzles was criticized as being like too simple.
Are they though?
Well, I didn't. Spoiler: I did not finish the game. I did eventually I had to settle for watching the whole game. Watching any of the game on YouTube. But most of the puzzles I found in the game, I thought were like pretty simple. Yeah.
Yeah, but what about the one towards the end?
I didn't get to that one. I know that. I know what you're talking about. And yes, I probably would struggle with that one, but yeah, I didn't actually get to that. Yeah, most of the endings, most of the puzzles seem like they get harder as the game goes on. So, which is very curious. But I don't know, maybe they wanted to get you kind of warmed up to the game first. So
I have no idea.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so yeah, most reviewers, however, do kind of summarize the game with the same kind of summary opinion I'm going to give on the game. If you're a fan of survival horror games, this game's definitely worth playing. They thought the game did not age very well. I can see that. I mean, the graphics still look pretty good pretty good today. They're nice 2D look. The adventure aspects definitely are part of the game that didn't age very well. The controls and how you navigate and the actual gameplay itself. As far as the atmosphere goes, the survival part of it, though, they're just the constant horror and dread to go through the game. That's still excellent. That's still top notch. So that's why I said, I don't know how many people play. This game's not getting the recognition it probably deserves because obviously Japan only. But yeah. So I think that anybody who enjoys survival horror games definitely needs to check this out. The game's easily found online, translated, or you can always pick up a copy of the game on eBay. If you already translated it for you. There are quite a number of copies being sold on eBay, for example, which are already in the US style carts with a US style label that already have the translated ROM on there for you. The prices for those usually average anywhere from about $16 to $25. So not that bad for
oh wow.
Yeah, so pretty good price. So if you want the actual Japanese game itself, that's that's pretty expensive. I've seen most complete copies of this game for the car only by itself it sells me for $65 to $75. Whereas the complete copy of the game can sell you for $130 to $200. So definitely much more expensive if you want the Japanese version. There's even available US style boxes. What the game might have looked like if it had come out here in the in the West. To go to the cart. So very nice.
I haven't even seen any of those.
I will link you to an auction which shows you one right now.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yep, here we go. Let me just get a better picture of it. Yeah, here we go. Okay. Check out this auction right here for what the facsimile you might look like.
Oh, okay. I feel
pretty,
yeah. I want to, because there's so many games for the platform that have the worst box art.
Yep.
I kind of want to know what like the bad box art would be for this game if it was released over here. That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's the Japanese. I mean, like that U.S. cover is based off the Japanese cover, basically.
Yes,
so,
it is.
So, I mean,
that is that because I'm looking at this, and if this game somehow was to be released back when it was made, I don't think it would have this cover, this box art, I should say. I really don't think it would.
Possibly. Okay.
Yeah. It just looks like too creepy or whatever.
Right.
Considering like this is video games are for kids because they're toys, you know, it's that era.
Yeah.
But, like,
oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I can definitely understand why this game didn't come out here in the West.
Nintendo would have definitely not allowed it.
I don't even know if Sega would have allowed it to. Play allowed this time, to be honest.
Are you sure about that? Look at the games that were released on the Genesis and whatnot.
Yeah, but this disturbing?
There's some disturbing games on the Genesis, no? That were released over here? No?
I'm trying. Some, but not to this extreme, I don't think. There's really like later on in the 90s, the Sega CD definitely got, I mean, like the Sega CD definitely got some disturbing games. I mean,
yeah.
you could even argue that you could argue that one of the reasons the Night Trap was so controversial was because of some of the violent scenes that game had featured. Which
how about like the Splatterhouse games? They're not as like psychological, but they're definitely more like gory and violent. And some of those were on Genesis.
I thought that series was TurboGrafx only.
No, because there was Splatterhouse 2 and 3 that were on Genesis, I believe.
Huh. Okay. All right. Yeah. I definitely. Yeah. I definitely know the TurboGrafx version of the game came out, but even that version cut back some of the blood and guts.
I thought that was like a hardware limitation.
You could be right. I'm not very familiar with the.
Maybe.
I'm not very familiar. I'm not very familiar enough with the hardware to be able to say that. There is a very good TurboGrafx podcast out there, which you should check out if you want to get more information on the actual games and the system itself. I don't think he's covered Splatterhouse yet, but I have played, however, an unofficial NES port of the game, which is pretty good. I mean, obviously they had to cut back the violence and blood on that version of the game, but
are you sure it wasn't that like spin-off Famicom game that you played?
No, it's definitely Splatterhouse.
Well, yeah, but there's what is it? Splatterhouse Wampaku something graffiti or something like that, which is like a more chibi, like definitely less violent version of Splatterhouse.
I don't think so. I'll have to check. I
don't know if that's even. I don't even know if that's translated.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a Splatterhouse spin-off game on the Famicom.
Curiously enough, my local arcade has a kid has Splatterhouse in it, which is
really.
Yeah, that was surprising. That was surprising to me.
Maybe that's like a good marketing point because, like, I guess Splatterhouse is again like one of those kind of like cult classics. I guess maybe.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. The Clock Tower series has definitely got mixed reviews over the years and sold kind of poorly. But the series definitely has its fans. And like I said before, Clock Tower for the Super Famicom is definitely considered to be by many of them to be the best game in the series, despite its limitations and problems. So, I mean, it's definitely it's a fun game. My recommending the game is cautionary. It pretty much depends upon your tolerance, your tolerance for survival horror stuff, and your tolerance for like clunky adventure games. If you enjoy both those things, this game is definitely worth checking out. because it's definitely a classic. I argue. I definitely can understand how games like Resident Evil definitely got definitely got inspired by this because it definitely has some like very good elements to it. So, yeah, I'm glad we got to check it out finally. It's a fun game. Definitely one of the more adult games the system that came out. That came out like in Japan.
You want to talk about adult games?
well, I was gonna say outside. Well, I was gonna say outside. Outside. Outside is straight like outside is straight like pornography games. But so, which did exist on the system.
Oh, certainly. Like, and they weren't like unlicensed games. They were straight up licensed adult games on Super Famicom and Mega Drive and all that.
Right, exactly. So, but yeah. So
Japan.
So, George, understanding that this game is probably just going to be too suspenseful for you. Overall, what do you think about the game as far as like as far as like adventure game aspects and how it's put together and that kind of stuff? Did you like it?
Well, I mean, it's I guess it's a well-made game. I mean, there's issues with the pointer and everything, like we said, with the snapping
Of course.
and
Right, yeah.
and whatnot. But I think this is a pretty good game for the time. This is most certainly not my kind of game, so I can't really say too much.
Sure.
Because it's just like it's really not for me. But yeah, I think it does deserve the popularity it has now.
Right.
For sure.
Well, the other human game I mentioned earlier, SOS, is actually very similar to this game as far as the actual look and feel of it goes. Because the game uses the same engine. The same engine. You use the same kind of like point and click adventure style format with it. So, I mean, if you can tolerate that, you'd probably enjoy it like SOS, because SOS is a pretty interesting game in like its own right. We'll have to cover this at some point. SOS is pretty much you're trying to survive the sinking of a ship. We have there's like a real time counter counting down on you to play through the game. As the ship sinks, the camera also like flip you sideways and upside down, that kind of stuff, also to make navigating the ship like more difficult.
Yeah, but does it have a giant mutant baby?
No.
Well, then it's not a good game.
But anyway. Yeah. So I would not mind seeing a modern version like this game. Like a clock tower game that came out like these days. With the technology and graphics, that we have like available now. Granted, Resident Evil is kind of like the be all end all now as far as survival horror games go. But I probably without a clock tower there wouldn't be Resident Evil. So I mean, I think that. Yeah, it should be interesting to see what this game, what this franchise might be like, a modern game that came out these days.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I think that's about it. Anything else you want to say about this game, George?
No.
Okay. Well then, at this time, we wish to thank our Patreon backers at www.patreon.com/the SNES podcast. For those $5 a month, you can get some exclusive benefits, such as like early access to the early access episodes, being able to dictate games, or being able to be thanked at the end of each episode. As I'm now thanking Chad, Daniel, Richard, and Savannah for doing so. If you want to contact us, you can reach us on Facebook. We have a Facebook group on there, or you can also send me an email directly if you want to. The email for that is like the SNES podcast at yahoo.com. We are available, at least for now, on iTunes. You may have heard the news, George, that Apple shut it down next year.
No, I didn't actually. I don't follow any of that stuff. Okay,
yep.
Well, that's a thing.
Yep. Well, they kind of consider it to be the program's not really needed anymore these days because a lot of the functions have taken over other things. So, But yeah, for right now at least, we're still on there.
Weird.
George, where can somebody contact you at if you like the so inclined?
Oh boy. Twitter is a thing. You can find me there. My handle is @_Derpkin_. That would be @_DERPKITTEN_, and that's about it.
Alrighty. Anything else coming up currently that you want to plug, or?
Nope.
Alrighty then. Next time we're covering another non-American game that George has picked for. Oh wait, no, so two different podcast. But
no, that's a non-American. I mean, it did come out over here, but it is non-American.
Oh, okay, yeah. Why don't you tell us that what we're covering here next time then, George?
That'd be Ease 3, Wanderers from Ease.
Yes, for a long time, the only game in the series to come out here in the West, which is probably what I was thinking about. But
that's not true, because the first one came out on Master System over here.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I think the second one came out over here as well.
When did the Master System version come out though? Because this was like an early Super NES game.
Like 80 something.
Oh, that early? Okay.
Yeah, man. It was a Master System game.
Well, Master System games were still coming out in like 1991. So for some reason I think.
Yeah, no, it was like a mid 80s release.
Oh, okay, early then, but okay, I did not realize that. I stand corrected.
I mean, Master System died quickly over here.
Yeah, of course, yes, but you know, in Europe and Japan, like had a longer life, but you know. And of course, Brazil had a very long life.
1988, they came out on Master System.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. Well, but yeah. So yeah, Ys 3 I played before in the past. Pretty good. Pretty good. Like pretty good action adventure game. Like it reminds me like Zelda games a lot. So we'll so it'll be fun to revisit the game for our next episode. So
yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much for your support. We are looking, we are again trying to get some more guests lined up in the podcast to come on the podcast sometime soon, to accommodate, just to, just have to accommodate their busy schedules and that ugly, awful, terrible thing out there called life. So
what's that?
Something you want to hide away from, a lot.
Is it scarier than Scissor Man?
Sometimes yes.
Sometimes, okay.
But yeah, that's actually a great point to discuss briefly to briefly close the episode on, George. What do you think about Scissor Man himself as a villain? Was he effective for you?
Some weird demonic 8-year-old chasing you with a giant pair of scissors looking to murder you. Yes.
Yeah, so he worked, right? He's a horror villain?
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd agree. I mean, like, as I mentioned, before the podcast started, he's kind of like an evil version of like Edward Scissorhands. So
I guess.
Definitely with a bit like a Freddy in him too. Also, I think like it was it was like hatred and tenacity the way he chases after you. So
kind of looks like the killer in Halloween was Michael Myers.
Yes, yeah, actually does. Good point. Yeah. So, but yeah. See, Halloween I actually did watch. I did watch some of the movies. Those horror.
I don't think those movies are too interesting.
It depends upon which one it is. The recent remake of the game, I'll be okay. The recent remake was very good. I thought actually, I liked that.
I watched a decent amount of the movies in the series, and I just I don't know.
But yeah. Anyway, so if this was the Hard 2600 podcast, we could talk about the Halloween game that came out on that system.
Oh jeez.
Yeah, it's not that good.
No, it's not.
But anyway, this game, however, Clock Tower is very, very good. I definitely encourage anybody out there who enjoys survival horror to check it out. It's a shame the game never got released here in the West like in any form or version, because the many games that got ignored 20 years ago have come out more recently here in the West. Like for example, like most of the games like at the like most of the games like in the Persona series. So it's a shame this one never did.
Oh man.
But anyway, thank you again always. Thank you again always like your support. And we'll catch you again next time. I take care, all.
I think that was the longest outro we've ever had.
Hey, who's counting, right?
Scissor Man.
Scissor Man. Okay, well, he can stay in his scary mansion in Norway for as far as I'm concerned.
There you go.
Yeah. Night all.
Goodbye.
Or afternoon or morning or whatever time it is of day that you're listening to this.
Oh,
Adios.
semantics. Adios, amigos.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man. Now you're playing with power. Super power.